talking with Kevin Ballard, who is running for state representative in the 28th district. Welcome to the program, Kevin.
Thank you, Kelly.
Kevin, you had a really strong showing in the August primary, and now you're one of the candidates going forward in the November election. Can you share what's motivating you to run for office?
Well, it's pretty simple, actually. It seems like the 28th has been influenced heavily on the representative side by the policy coming in from King County and Seattle. And the will of the electorate here is simply not being heard. With such legislative proposals as sanctuary state status, this referendum 90 K through 12 sex education legislation, and some of the carbon tax initiatives, these are wholly rejected by the voters down here when they were presented on the ballot, specifically with the carbon tax initiative and certainly the referendum 90 that had over 266,000 votes on petitions to put it on the November ballot. So these sorts of things where our legislators here in the 28 rejected the will of the electorate really motivated me to step up. I had some good friends ask if I would run. I'm a council member in DuPont, so I had some elected experience, certification from the Association of Washington Cities in Municipal Leadership. And it's just time. This one-party rule from the judicial to the executive to the legislature is not serving the people in the 28th, and that's why I'm running.
Kevin, you mentioned the comprehensive sexual health education bill and how controversial it is. Can you share what your stand is on that?
Simply, I wholly reject it. It was very short-sighted. Certainly, our legislators received word from thousands of parents saying, do not vote for this legislation. And it was basically along party lines. If you were a Democrat, you voted for it. And if you were a Republican, you didn't. I've participated in the signature collection effort, both in University Place, and I set up my own booth here in DuPont. That's how strongly I felt about it. You know, you can say enough about the curriculum itself, but we have this huge budget shortfall, as you know, coming up. And we're imposing a curriculum on school districts that are going to have to pay for it. And many of these school districts don't have the funding right now to be able to afford that. Second of all, this particular comprehensive sex education legislation said that they were going to remove, basically it removes local control of curriculum from the local school districts. This is being imposed from the state down. No parent wants that. We've seen way too many instances of government knows best. This is a prime example of that.
You mentioned the budget shortfall, and previous to the start of this interview, we talked about how in the previous budget cycle, there was a $2.8 billion surplus, and yet the Democratic majority went ahead and not only spent all $2.8 billion, but then taxed people even more. What's your stand on additional taxes in the face of all the COVID-19 expenses our state is now incurring?
Well, for me, it's a non-starter. What are we saying to our business community when our executive has said to people, well, you're essential and you're non-essential, and you're both part of the same industry, but because you've donated to my campaign, you're going to be essential today. And your brother over here, who is not a donator to my campaign, is non-essential. These non-essential entities that were arbitrarily picked by our governor basically have been told that they can't run business. Now we're going to come at them and ask them for more taxes after this, after we finally have a legislative session. That to me is immoral. We've had the opportunity to have a special legislative session. Every day that passes is making the situation worse. And Kelly, I don't know if you know this, I'm sure you do. The governor is violating state law right now. The budget department that oversees what's going on right now has determined that there's a cash deficit. Anytime there's a cash deficit, the governor is required to do across the board budget cuts. He has no choice. Gregoire did it back in the day, and now it's time for the governor to do that. Now, his only way out on this is if the legislature has taken action to alleviate that cash shortfall. But he won't even let the legislative branch of our government have a special session. So right now he's in violation of the law. There's a lot of ways we can get around this budget deficit. It's going to be very tough, and it's going to take guys like me who aren't afraid to make very tough decisions on behalf of the constituents to prevent them from getting taxed even more.
You mentioned a special session, and I've heard several other legislators say that a special session should be called. Why do you think the governor has chosen not to call a special session?
It's simple. This is a political decision. We're in a very tumultuous time politically. There are a lot of districts that are based on the decisions specifically towards the budget and taxation could flip to the Republican side. And the governor doesn't want that to happen. He wants to hold on to the legislature with majorities in both. The only way he can do that, the only way that the majority in the legislature would function based on this whole one-party system that we're dealing with, is if they hold off the special session, and now it looks like after January. So that's the only way they're going to pull this off.
If people out there would like to support your campaign, how can they go about doing that?
I've decided from the very inception of this campaign that I was going to keep it very simple. I have an election website, electkevinballard.com. Electkevinballard.com has a donation portal at the top, and they can click the button and donate through the portal. And if they wish to send any donations, they can contact the campaign on Facebook as well. We have a Facebook page, 28th Kevin Ballard for the 28th, as well as a Twitter presence. My Gmail account for the campaign is electkevinballard@gmail.com. See a common theme here. So we keep it kind of simple. That's how we're collecting our donations. We have some fundraising events planned in the future as well.